Pregame.tv, welcome back. Steve Fezzik flying solo, talking Golden Nugget games of the year. Did get some feedback from Aaron Kessler and from Tony Miller downtown. As you know, they put up 200 games of the year. I have them right here on my sheet. What I personally do is I check with some people, and on my sheet I like to put the opener number Golden Nugget puts up, the current number. A third column is what the number would have been on the two teams had they played at the end of last year, and then what we make it based upon the latest information, returning starters, quarterback, any coaching change this year. Put it all together, try to find plays. And it was interesting. Mechanics went on because they put this up earlier than they ever have before. And although I'm convinced that some of the numbers are off, they have to be. If I put them up, they'd be way off. I'm not sure what the off numbers really are, and I don't think I'm alone. We saw less of a line move on these games than we've ever seen before, and I don't think it's a matter of the numbers are that much sharper. They're certainly sharper. They do a better job each and every year. They did a great job this year, but there's still going to be some numbers that are off. But more, I think a lot of times when you see 30, 40 people in line, because you can bet 3 games, $1,000 each, and then go to the back of the line. And actually this year was 5 games. But what happens is that sometimes you'll have 6 guys there, and they're all basically part of one group. So if they've got their numbers together, they all go in there and they're making their wagers. And I really think that this year, with the Phil Steele coming out right at the time of the Golden Nugget, putting out their numbers, I just don't think people were ready to bomb. And so we haven't seen the type of movement that we would see in prior years. Now, having said that, we have seen some movement. One team in particular, there's one team that the buy sign is blinking on, and that is TCU this year. The feeling is that they are a perennial contender, getting used to the new conference. They had their one down year, and I think Mark Lawrence calls these type of teams bounce back teams that always win and that have a bad year. You always see them bringing it back up, and you see that in some of these line movements. September 27th, TCU at SMU opens 10. It's 12.5, so 2.5-point move. Oklahoma at TCU. Oklahoma's loaded this year. A lot of people very high on them. Golden Nugget likes them a lot. They opened 14. They're down to 11.5. Another big movement here. Kansas State at TCU. K-State opens -4. The market's not buying it. They're now -2. I actually think TCU will be favored in this game by the time that they play this game Saturday, November 8th. And one tip I wanted to pass on to you is that if you're just starting with your handicapping, I think get down to the Golden Nugget, pick up these sheets, because it's a great primer for how badly are you really getting robbed blind on point spreads later in the year. So if you take a look and you like Notre Dame -13 against Navy when they play later in the year, you could look at this sheet and say, you know, you could have laid 4. 3 at the opener, 4 currently in that game. Do you really think you got value still laying 13? You might. We have a Tuesday group meeting, and one of the savvy veterans in our group, Big Richie, always likes to say when someone says, you know, that line would be pick'em last year, and he would say, that was last year, and makes a big point about how dramatic some of these line moves can be from one year to another in terms of point spreads. Like I said, I've got a list of spreads and what people would make it last year versus what we would go ahead and make it this year. And it really is all over the map on some of these lines. I'm seeing, 10-point line moves based upon the changes that have occurred. A couple things as far as basic strategy betting. There's one game I wanted to talk about is Notre Dame is at Florida State Saturday, October 18th, and you just cannot give the Irish 24 points. I don't care if they're playing the 49ers. Just the knee-jerk reaction is that Notre Dame just can't be that much worse than Florida State. They bettors went ahead and popped that 3 times. It's 21. Usually Tony and his group move 1 point based upon a max bet that occurs. And the feeling is, too, that certain teams, Clemson's going to be down some. And we saw Clemson open up at one game, NC State, that's going to be down also. Saturday, October 4th, they opened 23. They're down to 21.5. So we saw some money there. And a lot of support. This is going to be an interesting team. Florida, the Gators. The Gators had no bite last year. Couldn't score. Capable defense, but when you can't score, you can't cover. And you see a lot of big line moves. LSU at Florida. This is Saturday, October 11th. You see that line come from open 9. It's down to 6.5, so it moves all the way through the 7. So a very key move in that game. Another LSU game that's intriguing is probably the game of the year, Alabama at LSU, Saturday, November 8th. That opens Bama minus 2.5. It goes up to 3. I don't think it's going to go past that. I mean, that's a lot of respect for this Alabama team that, frankly, has not been trending upwards here in the past year. And I know that both teams lost their quarterbacks, but LSU, boy, you got a feeling that by game time, that could well be pick 'em, but we will see. Alabama Saban always has, Nick Saban always has his team ready to go. But it's interesting how someone wanted to tie up their money for 2.5 months. I will say, or 4.5 months, I will say one of the techniques you can use here is if you're about to bet a game and you like a team, and on the sheet they're minus 10, and you see, oh, I can get them now minus 9. So you get them cheaper than what the opening number was. I would never bet it. I think that all the money that got bet initially on these games was based upon not just sharp action, but pro-sharp action for the most part. And because of that, if the pros are going to tie up their money for 4 months, they're only going to bet a game that's off by 3 points. So I would say if you disagree with the way they bet a game, just wait. You're probably going to get a better number later on. However, if you like a game, for instance, I like Notre Dame. They were minus 3 against Navy. Now they're minus 4. I would say it's almost a lock that that number is probably just going to keep going higher and higher as we move forward. You're going to see the money keep flowing the direction that it's going. Another great tool to utilize with these point spreads, especially in September, is they're really a good gauge for what the actual point spread is going to close at. So if you want to look at like week 2 and week 3, you've got a printed copy of this, up come the openers, and you see the opener 6 points off of what the Golden Nugget had all summer. I've heard the rationale that people say, well, you know, Bookmaker and Chris and all these sharp offshore books are totally disagreeing with the Golden Nugget, so their number is sharper. Bullshit. It's not Chris disagreeing with the Golden Nugget. It's Chris disagreeing with the sharp betting market. By September, it's not just Golden Nuggets input. Everyone gets their input into that number, and they get their input by putting their hard-earned dollars down on those games. These numbers, by the time the games kick off, wind up being rather sharp, and certainly much sharper than a college football opener that's going to pop up on week 2. So that would probably, or week 3. So absent anything dramatic that occurs, obviously, if we had a team go out and they're 10-point favorite and they lose by 17, then we got to make a huge adjustment with the power rating. But if their week 1 results are pretty much on par with the point spreads, you can pretty much count on the Golden Nugget week 2 number on that team to be sharper than the opening number in the offshore world. It won't be sharper than the closer, but it'll be sharper than the opener. Bottom line, a lot of fun with the Golden Nugget with these games of the year. We'll be talking about them all summer long. It's great to have college football back. We'll really go ahead and roll up our sleeves and dig into it when I get some of the other pregame handicappers back in, and we'll be discussing best bets, and I'm just super excited about that. So I did want to go ahead and share that with you, and go ahead and stay tuned. We're going to do a second video here. I have rants on every sport, things that just drive Fezzik crazy. So stay with us for that again, and I will be talking about pretty much every sport but hockey, because what do I know about hockey? Stay with us. Pregame.tv.